Good morning and half a day. The Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriation, and Housing is now called to order. For the record, today is Wednesday, July 27, and the time now is 9:03. Notice for this budget hearing were disseminated via email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets. First public notice was given on July 18, followed by July 20th. The committee will now hear Bill 276-36 COR, introduced by the Committee on Rules at the request of the I Maga'hågan Guåhan, the Governor of Guam, in accordance with the Organic Act of Guam. An act making appropriation for the operation of the executive branch of the Government of Guam for fiscal year ending September 30th, 2023, making other appropriations, establishing miscellaneous and administrative provisions relative to the Department of Revenue and Taxation. My favorite agency, because they bring in all the money. But anyway, I'd like to acknowledge my colleagues that have joined me this morning, Senator Taylor, and those testifying on Bill 276-36 relative to the Department of Revenue and Taxation are invited to the panel, and they are Ms. Daphne Shimzu, the Director, Ms. Marie Lezama, who's the Deputy Director, Ms. Michelle Santos, who's the Insurance Commissioner, correct? Yes. Okay, and then we got Mr. Paul Pablo, who's the Deputy Tax Commissioner, if I'm correct, right? Okay, good. I just want to make sure I got the titles correct. The rules for this budget hearing. Written testimony shall be submitted to the committee. Please provide my legislative staff with your written testimony for photocopying. Testimony may be read, and lengthy testimony should be summarized to about 5 minutes, but we will allow you more time to give your testimony, Ms. Shimizu, and the rest of the staff. Those testifying will be allowed to present oral testimony. Once you're done, please remain in the room for questions or for additional testimony as may be desired by members of the committee. Questions and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda, which is the budget of the Department of Revenue and Taxation. Personal inference as to the character or the motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. Any violation of the general rule of conduct will result in removal from the budget hearing. Proper form and decorum shall be practiced by all present in the public hearing room for these proceedings. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and decorum will be restricted from providing any oral or continuing oral testimony and will be removed from the room. When you speak, please make sure that the microphone is on, that you speak into the microphone. Other questions may be submitted to the committee for submission to the agency for a response. Please state your name and your title for the record. I'll now ask the panel to please rise as the Sergeant Arms will swear you in for your testimony.
Please raise your right hand. Under penalty of perjury, do you all affirm that any and all information you provide today, whether it be verbally, electronically, and in writing, be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Randolph, you may proceed.
Thank you, Sergeant Arm. We will now begin to discuss Bill 276-36 relative to the Department of Revenue and Taxation's budget. I would ask the director and everyone on the panel, when you first speak, please introduce yourself so that we're reminded of which one is Michelle and which one's Marina, just to make sure, because we know which one is Paul, we know which one's Daphne. But just introduce yourself so that as the people of Guam are watching, they're reminded of who you are, or at least they'll get to know exactly who you are. Ms. Shimizu, you may begin, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Senator Agustin. We do have a PowerPoint presentation, so I'd like to request that that be put up on the screen. Thank you. And again, I wanted to say half a day to you, Senator Agustin, and also to Senator Taylor and other members of the Committee on General Government Operations, Appropriations, and Housing. I'm Daphne Shimizu, and I'm the Director of the Department of Revenue and Taxation, and I'd like to just thank you so much for the opportunity to have us here today to present our FY23 Budget Requests. I also wanted to recognize here with me today is our Deputy Director, Ms. Marie P. Lezama, our Insurance and Banking Commissioner, Mrs. Michelle Santos, our Deputy Tax Commissioner, Mr. Paul Pablo, and we also just wanted to make sure that we recognize our team at the Department of Revenue and Taxation, and we wanted to relay our thanks to them for all of the hard work that they have done, most especially over the last 2.5 years that we've been working to address the issue of COVID. And again, I just can't say thank you enough to our team. And now I just want to go ahead and hand it over to Deputy Director Lezama.
Hi, good morning. I am Marie Lezama. I'm the Deputy Director for the Department of Revenue and Taxation. Good morning, and thank you, Senator Agustin, Senator Taylor. And if we could just go to the next slide, please. So our presentation today will include our mission statement, our goals and objectives, our budget data and summary, some of our major accomplishments, and our outlook for fiscal year 2023. Next slide, please. Our agency's mission statement is to apply and enforce licensing laws with integrity and fairness and encourage voluntary compliance by educating customers to enhance and maintain public confidence. Next slide. Our purpose is found in 11 GCA, Chapter 1, Section 1103. And it reads, the department shall be charged with the enforcement of the tax laws of Guam and the collection of revenue. It shall also be the government agency responsible for licensing and registration, as well as allied and connected enforcement functions. Next slide, please. Some of our goals and objectives include to increase enforcement efforts to establish and maintain public confidence in both the local and internal revenue tax systems as they apply to the island. Additionally, we seek to increase taxpayer awareness of tax laws and reporting responsibilities in achieving a high degree of voluntary compliance. We seek to regulate holders of licenses for the protection of the consumers of Guam from unsafe, unsound, and unfair practices. And we also seek to improve e-commerce services as it pertains to the timely filing and submission of applications, tax documents, and/or business forms. Next slide. Continuing on, we seek to increase expertise of staff and maximize capability to support department-wide programs and serve taxpayers. We wish to provide quality services in a cost-effective and timely manner. We also seek to enhance and improve systems and processes to reduce customer wait times and lines. And we also would like to maintain support and assistance to our regulatory boards, commissions to fulfill mandates. Next slide. Some of the boards that we cover are the Alcohol, Beverage, and Compliance Board, that of Equalization, Banking and Insurance, Cannabis Control, Real Estate, and we are also working on the Guam Unarmed Combat Commission. Next slide. Our agency comprises six divisions comprise our agency, and of that we have approximately 20 branches. You will see under the Executive Direction branch, we have the Director's Office, the Passport Office, our Technical Research and Appeals Bureau, the Systems and Programming Support. Under Tax Enforcement Division, we have Criminal Investigation, Tax Examination, and Collection. Under Taxpayer Services Division, we have the Income Tax Assistance and Processing Branch, we have Business Privilege Tax, Electronic Data Processing, Central Files, and Accounting. Under Real Property Tax, we have the Appraisal and Assessment branches. Under Regulatory, the Regulatory Division, we have Insurance, Securities, Banking, and Real Estate, as well as General Licensing and Registration, Compliance, and Weights and Measures. And last but not least, we have the Motor Vehicle Division, which includes driver's license, vehicle registration, and the Motor Carrier Safety Assistance Program. Next slide. Okay, thank you. As you will see, we have all these branches listed under the organizational chart. Oh, I'm sorry. Please go back to the previous one, the organizational chart. You'll see that the listing of all the branches, and you will see, the order and of succession, or who do they report to. Okay, and next one. So fiscal year 23, we are requesting $14.9 million, which is an increase of $873,000. I'm sorry, just over $873,000, which is for personnel and operations. And then now I'd like to turn it over to Director Shimizu.
Next slide, please. So in this slide, we show the comparison of our prior 2 years with what we're requesting for this year. As Deputy Director Lizama mentioned, we're requesting for about $14.9 million, which is just slightly over $800,000 more than how much we were authorized for fiscal year 2022, which was about $14 million. If you'll note, for FY 2021, there was a significant difference between FY 2021 and FY 2022, what was provided for our budget, and that's because in FY 2021, there was a change from FY 2021 to FY 2022 because of the ACTC and AOTC reimbursements. And since we now receive the ACTC or the child tax credit payments as an advance, then they were treated differently in the budget, and so again, that's why there is a difference between, there was a significant difference between what we saw for FY 2021 and FY 2022. But if you notice, FY 2023 is consistent with how budget was done for last year. Next slide, please. So we wanted to share with you the object categories that make up our request. At the top of our list, and what takes up the majority of our budget, is personnel, and that is about 74% of our total request. Behind that, the top 3 operational expenses are for our contracts, which is about 14% of our budget, or $2.1 million. Our building rent, which is about 9% of our total request, or about $1.37 million. And supplies, which is about 2% of our budget, and that's about $300,000. In addition to those, and those particular expenses, they make up about 99% of our total budget. Utilities is the next highest item or category, coming in at about $83,000, and that actually is for our phone system. Then we have travel. What travel is here, although that's the object category, what we have here or what we use this particular category for is for mileage reimbursements, because our agency personnel do use their personal vehicles at times, and so for official business, and so we do reimburse our agency personnel for those expenses. We also have budgeted or requesting for $5,400 for miscellaneous items, $5,000 for equipment, about $1,000 for drug testing. And again, this totals the $14.9 million, which we are requesting for fiscal year 2023. And if you'll please move to the next slide. So of course, we just wanted to show again how much of our budget really is for personnel versus operational expenses. And again, it's quite significant. The majority of our budget is used for personnel, and historically, that's how it has existed. Next slide, please. We do receive some money from special funds, and so we wanted to break that down here for you. The general fund request that we're making is for FY 2023 is for $12.455 million, and special funds is $2.465 million. And if you'll go to the next slide, we'll further drill down on what that $2.465 million is made up of. We do have the Banking and Insurance Fund. We have also the Tax Collection Enhancement Fund and the Better Public Service Fund. And so in addition to the $12.455 million that we're requesting from the general fund, we're also requesting for the use of these monies for those particular funds. And again, that's $433,783 from the BIEF, $704,824 from the Tax Collection Enhancement Fund, or TCEF Fund, and then $1.327 million from the Better Public Service Fund. Next slide, please. And now we wanted to share with you some significant items which have been accomplished in this last year. Of course, this is not all-inclusive, but these were items that we wanted to share with you, which we thought were important. And so if you'll move to the next slide, please.
Okay. So between 2020 through June of this year, we have processed over $550 million in local and federal aid. And those include economic impact payments 1, 2, and 3, as well as the Advanced Child Tax Credit, the All Rise program, and the Azuda I Maga'hågan program. Next slide, please. So this slide would just further breaks down the actual numbers involved in each of the economic payments. So you will see how many payments were made and the dollar amount for each disbursement. Next slide, please. This does the same thing with advanced child tax credits, showing that we did do a total of 5 payments for the latter half of 2021, and that totaled $56.48 million for the year. Next slide.
And about the same time that we were working on the programming and standing up of the payments for the advanced CTC, we also were working to implement and do the programming for the All Rise program that was authorized by Executive Order 2021-18. So we did open the application period for the All Rise program on September 1, 2021, and on that day, in a single day, we received about 21,000 applications. And what we really believe was also significant, in addition to receiving over 20,000 applications for this program, is that 17,000 of those applications were actually received online. If you look at the timeline that we provided, you'll see that within 10 days of the receipt of the applications, or 10 days of the opening of the application period for All Rise, we had made our first payments for the All Rise program. We made 18,236 payments, totaling $19.499 million. We did close out the application period for the All Rise program on September 15, 2021. The last day to make payment for All Rise was June 30, and as of June 30, we had paid out 36,253 taxpayers, a total of $37,228,800. Next slide, please. And so we also wanted to share some information about how we've done with regards to the average payout for the average payout time for income tax refunds. And as you know, because of the permanent injunction, historically we've worked to stay within the 6 months of due date or date filed requirement for the payment of refunds. Now in 2022, we began to pay out tax year 2021 refunds on February 25. And from that date, we've seen refund payment turnaround time from the time a return is filed to the time a refund is paid. We've seen the range of time between 25 and 62 days from filing. And the average payment time as of July 15 for 2020, and then again, we're looking at 2022 or current year tax returns, is approximately 46 days, or about 6.5 weeks. Next slide, please. The information in this particular slide and in the next slide after this is from the refund liability reports, which are provided to the legislature on a monthly basis. And if you'll notice, at the bottom axis, you'll see for 2018 tax year and tax returns, which were received through May, as of May 2019, we received 25,701 2018 or current year tax returns as of May 2019. When we got to May 2022, for current year tax returns only, and again, this is for 2021 tax returns, we saw a significant increase in the number of current year returns we received, over 100% increase. So we had received, as of May 2022, 53,847 income tax returns. And these are returns that could be a refund return, they could be a liability return, or they could be a zero return, meaning there's no payment due or payment either to the government or to the taxpayer. Next slide, please. Of the number of returns, of refund returns that we had received, if you'll notice again on the bottom, if you look at the 2018 column, you see that we had paid out 7,591 taxpayers their income tax returns as of May 2019, and that's again for current year returns only. By the time we get to 2021, tax returns, again, this just a few months ago, we'd already paid out 36,411 taxpayers their income tax refunds. So although we've seen an over 100% increase in the number of returns that we received year over year when we compare May 2019 to May 2022, we actually are processing and paying them out almost 4 times faster. And how this has been able to be realized is really very close monitoring by our EDP supervisor, our taxpayer services administrator, our income tax team, and of course support from even our non-tax branches in the area of processing so that we can make sure that we get these refunds paid out to our people as quickly as possible. Next slide, please. But in addition to ramping up and working on, making sure that we allocate resources to the processing, I mean, as you know, we are a primarily manual filing jurisdiction. The majority of our taxpayers file a paper filing form. But what we have done and worked to do, and most especially what COVID has taught us, is the importance of making sure that we move toward the use of technology. And so if you look at this particular slide, this shows the number of online files forms 1040 that have been filed from the time we began to receive forms 1040 online for tax year 2005 all the way through the early part of July. And so from tax years 2005 to 2018, we saw an average of just a little bit over 1,000 tax returns that were received online. And of course, when we got to tax year 2019, where there was 1,996 returns that were filed online, that increase which we saw, which was about, again, 100% increase in the number that we saw online in comparison with the average from the years before, that was primarily because of COVID. But what we had to do in order to make sure that we can have more people file online, and again, just to share with you kind of the background, what was allowed to be filed online is what historically we've seen as the 1040 EZ format. So you couldn't have a dependent, your wages had to be below a certain amount, I believe it was 100,000 or 50,000, depending on your filing status, and you couldn't claim credits, things like that. And so what we did when we opened up before we opened up the 2020 tax season is we expanded what could be filed online, and we began to really encourage people to file online. So if you'll notice from 2019 to 2020, we saw the number of returns being filed go from 1,996 to 7,716. And these are truly Forms 1040. In 2019, we did allow for, during COVID, I guess the non-filer form, there was a non-filer form, but these are actual Forms 1040s that were filed. So we saw in 2020, and again, because we have a population of about 70 to 80,000 total 1040 filers, so we went from less than 2% online filing rate to between 9.5% to about 11%, depending again on if our total filing population is 70,000 or 80,000. And so that's huge. And additionally, why that's huge, as we had been discussing with our team, the impact of trying to move to modernizing and having people file online, if we estimate that the 7,716 returns takes about 10 minutes per return to process, which honestly is a very, very low estimate, then that's 77,160 minutes. That's 1,286 hours. That's more than half of a full-time person's hours for a single year. And even if we double that and say it's 20 minutes, which again, it's likely higher than 20 minutes, and the reason why, there is a lot, and I know Senator Snogstein, you're very aware of our process. When we receive a manual return, it has to be received at income tax, it gets stamped there, it gets transmitted, it gets batched, it gets sent to our EDP team. What they do is they take those returns, they inventory them, they scan them, they have to unstable them, scan them, they have to rebatch them so that way they can be taken by our central files team who inventories them, sends them to EDP, EDP takes them and they make sure that they have people to process them, right, enter all the data into the system. So that process definitely takes more than 10 minutes, and I'm confident, again, it will likely take more than 20. But even if we say that every return takes about 20 minutes, that's 154,000 minutes, and that's over almost 2,600 hours. So that's about a year and a quarter's worth of a full-time person. And so the impact of moving toward having things done online is huge. It's huge in time savings, but it's also huge as we work to try to make sure that the turnaround time continues to stay low. You know, in order to keep that sustainable, you know, we need to and we will continue to be working on making sure that we continue to expand what can be filed online, and again, encourage people to use our online filing option. Next slide, please. Sorry, if you could go back to the slide before.
Okay, you know, in line with trying to achieve our goals, we did want to also continue with the automation and modernization of the different branches. In October of 2021, we launched, or we introduced the ability to do renewals and replacements for certain IDs and driver's licenses to include real ID compliant credentials via the online process. As of June of this year, there have been 2,223 online renewals. Next slide, please. At our vehicle registration branch, we have seen that since its implementation in fiscal year 2017 at 4,111 renewals done online, as of fiscal year 2021, that has skyrocketed to 59,107 renewals. Next slide. So for our outlook in the upcoming fiscal year, we hope to continue our modernization efforts, which will include the increase in the online filing of Forms 1040 and other forms, as well as online applications for business licenses. We hope to further enhance the progress made at the driver's license and ID system by pushing the pre-registration renewals and replacements. We also hope to continue with training, or to include training, IRS training for our audit and examination branch, as well as expand it for our collections branch. We will continue we need to stand up the cannabis industry licensing and regulation aspects. And we also hope to implement the Unarmed Combat Commission and be able to comply with any of the mandates that will come our way.
Next slide, please. And with that, we just wanted to say, again, thank you very much, Senator Agustin, Senator Brown, Senator Tadekwi, for being here this morning. Yeah. And we're here, our team is here to answer any questions that you may have regarding our presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jimzo and Ms. Dezama. I'd like to also recognize Senator Brown has joined us. How much money goes through, not what you produce out, but goes through, that's collected or paid at revenue and tax?
So with my understanding, is probably between 80 to 90% of our general fund monies are actually received or collected through the efforts of Rev and Tax, because they have to do with income tax collections, they are withholding, they are for, and if you look at the CRER, you'll see the different categories there, right? There's corporate, individual, withholding, then also we have BPT. So, you know, those are the largest pieces, I believe, of the general fund, and those all, again, are collected as part of the efforts of the Department of Revenue and Taxation.
Okay, and with that statement, I'd like to thank you for only asking for less than $1 million. For an agency that collects basically everything that runs the government, you're not asking a lot versus a lot of other agencies, and I know my colleagues will echo the same thing. A lot of agencies have been asking a lot of money, and for an agency that's only asking for less than $1 million to continue doing what you're doing and to improve and maybe collect more, Because there's still a lot of collection. I know that needs to happen. You know, like you mentioned, I'm well aware, and I used to work there. And but for only less than $1 million, I'm happy, and I'm in support of that. 'Cause that's an easy number for me. It's an easy number. But my concern really goes back to something we brought up with you in the very beginning of your term. Is I like to figure out a way how to move you out of that rental and have your own building. You're basically paying $1.4 million. That's building and utilities. When you could own your own building and maybe use $1 million for a lease to own, and then the rest would be your utilities, which would be more than enough.
Correct, and I believe we are reaching the final year of our our agreement with our landlord. And so very soon we're going to have to be working to identify another space, or at least to issue the IFB for the space for us. And so we're nearing, I think we're going to be starting our 5th year very soon. So again, thank you, Senator, for that. Our team has worked hard. As you know, when we began our term at the Department of Revenue and Taxation, there were quite a few issues with our building. We had to address the issue of fire because our fire alarm system, our fire suppression system wasn't working. We did have some mold in our building. So there was quite a few things that we've worked with our landlords to address, and we're grateful as well to them for working on those. But, you know, definitely our team has worked very hard, and I know, you know, the entire everybody, I think, through COVID has had to work very hard so that way we can help to save lives. And for us, what's been important is not just working to save lives, because we have to make sure our team is safe and healthy, but we wanted to make sure that as we work to help to contribute to getting the economy back. And so, you know, our team actually, even though on March 16, 2020, the government had closed down, on March 18, 2020, our team was actually activated. And in fact, we were out working to make sure we enforce on the executive orders that had to do with regulation of businesses. Our team, especially over the last 2 years, has done a lot of overtime because we wanted to make sure we continue to, again, pay out the over $550 million in aid that, you know, a lot of those were new programs. And so, again, thank you for your support on that, because, of course, you know what, we will be having to go out and make sure that we look for another space, or look for a space, because we're coming to the 5th year of being in this building. I'm sorry, the 5th year of this term, although we've been in this building since, I think, for over 10 years now.
Yes, I'm aware of how long they've been there. I helped move. I was with Mr. Paul Pablo when we moved into that building, and we're like, it looked good until we saw the four-legged critters roaming around in the different stalls there. And then there's been a lot of problems in that building, and I believe that my concern is the safety. We need to improve the safety, the environment, the working environment. And I still believe you guys are on a 5-acre lot, and if we can figure out a way to convince Chamorro Land Trust or the Department of Land Management to find property, it'll be whoever gives it up. If they need to get paid for it, then so be it. I mean, they got commercial lots at Chamorro Land Trust. There shouldn't be any reason why you can't be part of that commercial part if that's what it takes. Because for an agency that actually helps them get their budget, they should be helping you. Because as you're successful, everybody becomes profitable. That's what it comes down to. But, you know, with $1.4 million that you pay in utilities and building, I honestly believe you need to move out. You could do a lot better. And you can stop having the weekend bus courses and everything, because you can have a compound that can do it all within the week. And everybody can go back to working Monday to Friday. Other than when, you know, when the CID has to go out to do their thing, or ABC, then it'll be different. I understand that. That's an easy one. That's a no-brainer. And then the collection people can do, you know, you guys, for most people that don't know what revenue and tax does, por favor, they need to pay attention, because you guys do a lot. And I thank you all and all your staff for all the effort you've done and all the hard work you all do. Thank God that most of you guys are safe. You know, you're trying to stay safe, and that's what you've been focused on. And with that, I'll ask Senator Tello. You have any questions with the panel, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning to my colleagues, and most especially good morning, Daphne, and to your staff. Appreciate you being here on this very wet couple of days. even though it's not raining, it feels like it's raining anyways with the ground soak. So please drive safely when you leave, and those who are listening, please stay safe. You know, I was going to bring up the office space. I'm glad the chairman brought this up. I don't know if you said you gave any plans with how are you going to try and find a way to adjust, not adjust, well, you can adjust by maybe separating certain departments in different areas of the island, you know, not being so congested in one area and, you know, like anything to do with vehicles in one section, you know, and then another area for collections, you know, by itself. But, you know, $1.4 million, you could have had your own building in the last 5 years, number one. But the thing that most concerns me, and I've been down there several times, is the safety of your employees. That's the biggest concern. I've seen so many issues in the last, you know, 10 years. That's been a problem, and I'm sure, you know, Daphne, that's the biggest concern you have is the safety of your employees. So please, if you don't have a plan, can you put something together, maybe provide it to us, maybe separating the agencies, not making it so congested in different parts of the island that, because I know that driver's license now is at DPW, is that true, or where is that?
Vehicle registration is at the DPW compound, yes.
Okay, so that's good, and that's a sign of, you know, changing to adjust. So to save some money for the government, even though, you know, if, like the chairman said, of all agencies, you're the one that brings the money in, you know. But thank you for that concern and with the safety of your employees, okay? So I'm really concerned about that. The other one is the ARP funding that you received, about get the correct amounts, 7 million, maybe 7 million plus. Right now, as of June 30th, your balance to that is about $5,847,035 is the balance as of June 30th. It has not been expended. So can you tell me what the plan is for the remaining amount?
Right, and thank you, Senator Tadigui. With regards to the ARP funding, well, right now, one of the things that we're working on is we've been in discussion with the Office of Technology to help to modernize our phone system. We have an antiquated phone system. We have a phone system that doesn't allow for us to be able to run reports, to know how many calls are dropped, to know how many calls we receive. So, and also we have a lot of challenges with it in general. So we have been in discussions with the Office of Technology. One of the larger items is that I believe also some of our monies will be, if they haven't already been utilized, we have talked with OTEC about making sure that we harden our system. We make sure that we continue to, that we have the equipment that we need to ensure kind of the sustainability of our system, and so we don't run into issues where perhaps if there's a power outage, because we do have a large UPS, but it's not like it's the largest, like 7 feet tall and like 3 feet wide, right? So it's not the standard UPS. So there are certain equipment that we are working with OTEC to make sure that we procure before the end of the year. And again, the monies that we received or the monies that were allocated for ARP were for modernization. As you know, and as we had shown in our presentation earlier, modernization is very important to us. It's been very key, and we continue to talk with our team about how we can continue to modernize. In fact, as Deputy Director Lizama mentioned, the outlook for 2023, when we come into the 2023 tax filing system, you know, we're already planning how we're going to expand the Forms 1040. So although we may have a balance left in the our ARP budget, we do have plans again for continuing to modernization in the area of our income taxes, in the area of course, driver's license. In the area of driver's license, we've seen, of course, although we have done some work, there's still room for improvement. And as Deputy Director Lizam also mentioned, we are looking forward to having an online business license application and to not just have our general licensing, but licensing for all of our branches to basically be able to be done online. So those are the things we have to look forward to. And those are kind of our general plans for our agency.
Are you contributing to the financial management system as well, using any of this money that DOA is? Okay.
None of our funding, I don't believe any of our funds are to be allocated for that. I believe that that falls under the Department of Administration solely.
Okay, so we know that this art funding has a timeline to expend, and so I'm sure that you're going to have to put something together to a plan to spend this because of procurement is very difficult. It's showing here when the governor gave it to you, there was a comment made that it was made for IT, like you mentioned, also contractual needs, and accounting system and computerized communications for DRT as well as DOA, combined. So that's going to take procurement. It's going to take some time. So I look forward to seeing your plan in place to spend the remaining. Actually, I said it was about $5,847,000. I'm coming up actually a little bit more than that, almost $6 million. Okay, so appreciate looking into that. The other one is in the closing of FY21 last year, there was a transfer in to rev and tax for $16,260. I know it's a minimal amount considering how much you get, but can you tell me what that $16,260 went to? It was a closing out for FY21, transferred in.
I will have to get back to you on that,
Okay.
Senator. Our ASO was not able to be with us today, but we'll go ahead and get that information to you.
Right.
What I do know, I believe in the prior year, we had, in a budget where we are like a $13 to $14 million budget, I think in fiscal year 2020, there was like $15,000 or so that had to be put in order to make sure that we were able to cover everything. But I was talking with our team because in a $13 or $14 million budget, the 15, and again, I don't know what the 16,000 is. I actually will have to look at that. But in the year before, where 15,000 or approximately 15,000 had to be infused, we believe that 15,000 it's like very hard to come up with just a kind of a balanced budget, right? Where all of your expenses equal all of your revenues. And so we believe that to come up with just like a $15,000 variance, and again, this was for the 2 years ago, was pretty, it's pretty close. So it means that we're able to live within our means and, again, because it was just 15,000, but I will
Sure.
have to get back to you on that 16,260.
Okay, thank you for that. And do you anticipate any lapses for FY22?
You know what, at this time, our team is actually still working on a projection, so we still have to work on some of our payables. I don't know if we are, I don't believe we're projecting a lapse, though.
Okay, did you have any lapses for FY21?
Again, I will have to get back to you about that.
Okay, I appreciate that. It's really important information as we look into the budget this year. The other one is, well, there's a sizable amount of limited term employees listed on DRT's FY23 staffing pattern. So what is the current number of LTAs funded by the general fund and special funds?
So I don't have a breakdown by general and special, but I do know that for FY 2021, we had approximately 124 employees. For FY 2022, we were authorized for about 162. And then for FY 2023, this is a total of 188 that we're requesting. And just to share with you what has been what we have been working on, we actually have had some LTAs that have been with us for 8 years or longer, and have not been able to be, for some reason, have not been able to qualify for certain positions. In particular, I wanted to, maybe I can talk on the issue of the driver's license examination branch. So in years past, the driver's license examination branch was a branch where we actually had examiners, right? We administered the exam, we did the driving test, et cetera. When we moved that out of our agency to the current process where we have driving schools and where the test is actually administered, the written test is administered through an MOU with UOG, and now we have, our team's function is a little bit different. But what did not happen was the job description or the requirement for that position, particular position, didn't change. And so when we got in 2019, and I think this was something that our team had been trying to work on for a while, was the adjustment of the particular job requirement, because the ratings were largely based on the number of years that you had your driver's license. And so if you had your license for 30 or 40 years, you would rate higher than someone who had a license for 10 or 5 years. And so that's something that in this last couple years we've worked to try to adjust, because that was causing our team members who were LTAs, right, but who had the experience to not be able to, I guess, rate for or profile for the positions of driver's license examination branch. And so what we worked on, and I believe that was already adjusted, is working on making that change so we could start to see some of our people become, be able to qualify for that particular position. Some things that we were working on, and we've been trying to work on for the last 2 years, but we're now seeing a lot of movement in just recently, is we do recognize that we have a lot of very seasoned employees with us. People have been with us for, some people over 30 years. I think have somebody who's like 35, 36 years maybe even. In our real property, some of our administrators, we have people who are with us for a couple of decades. And so the concern that we have is that we do have some very seasoned people that are ready already to retire. And then there's a bit of a gap, right, between the seasoned people and then, kind of trying to bring in other people into our agency. What we've been working on is to try to get our team who has been there at maybe an entry-level position, perhaps to be able to move into higher-level positions so that they can be trained, they can have the experience to move up as we start seeing people exit through retirement. And then work to hire new people into our agency. So over the last several months, we've seen several, we've been going through the process of really trying to get people in again so that we can bring people in. But in terms of LTAs, Senator Taitagui, the other thing that we've been working to do is, especially through COVID, we recognized there was although we were working to process returns, et cetera, there were other areas where we needed to, that may not have been focused on, that need to be focused on. And so part of our efforts included just trying to figure out or bring in as many people as we can to get the backlogs done, because we did have a backlog also in BPT. We have some backlogs in accounting, right? Those things need to get done. So what we hope to do is to hire people so that we can get to the point that we don't have so much of a backlog, and then to do an evaluation or assessment of what really our agency should be like, most especially as we move toward modernization, right? The goal is to move toward modernization, and I know there's some concern about that. I know that modernization and the idea of having things done online is kind of scary for people, because people may worry about job security, they may be worried that they may not be needed, but the reality is in our agency, for sure, we definitely could utilize those efforts in doing more analysis work, doing more collections work, doing more high-level technical work than in data processing and data entry, although data entry is very important. So probably the increase in the LTAs is because really, well, first of all, I think we've been short for many years already. We do need people right away, but the goal is really to make sure that we are the right size. But again, coming to that where we should be is going to take a little bit of time. And in the meantime, we do need people. The other thing, of course, that we've seen is it does at times take a while for people to be able to be hired when it goes through the usual hiring process. And so again, if we're able to get LTAs, we're able to get them more quickly. Again, the work, just because somebody the work continues to pile up, and so it's a tool that we can utilize to make sure, again, that we don't have a backlog while we're trying to make sure that we can get people to classified service.
I totally understand, but my concern is, an LTA is an unclassified position, and an appointment not to exceed 1 year. Upon the expiration of any of these LTAs, are they reappointed, or will DRT be required to hire another person?
So we do have situations where LTAs are renewed, and we have been renewing people. And again, the idea is because they've been working with us, Senator, you know, the hope is that we can get them into the classified service. And I think we have had people who are like 8 years or more that have not been, for whatever reason, able to qualify, but we're hopeful that they can.
Okay.
And we've been actively working to try to get those.
Yeah. What about any
Recruitments.
LTAs paid for by federal funds?
We do have our motor carriers program, our motor carriers services program, that is completely federally funded, and those individuals there are not classified.
Okay, and they are paid for by federal funds. Okay, so they have a
Yes.
timeline on there. On the combat, the unarmed combat, what funds that commission?
With regards to the unarmed combat, you know what, we wanted to flag that it's not an active board.
Right.
There were nominees to that board in this last year, which is why we wanted to just make sure we included it. There have been, as far as I know, I don't believe there has been anyone who has actually been confirmed by the legislature, but we did see nominations. So we're not as familiar. We know it's going to take some effort, and it's the first time that we're actually becoming aware of it, I think, in this last year. And so we're not sure what's involved in it, but we just wanted to flag it for you so that way you're aware.
But it's not funded? There's nothing in legislation, because it is in law, you know, to create this board, but
Correct.
I really didn't see any funding to fund this board at all.
At this point, I'm not sure if there's any special funds that is used for that.
it. Okay. You know, I'm sorry to go back, but of the 188 budgeted FTAs positioned for the FY23 budget, how many of those positions are under recruitment?
Okay, so I know we did have our ASO actually was pulling together some information. I don't have that.
If you don't have it, then, you know,
Yeah.
please, you know, give it to the chair so that we can look at that during budget time. Going to special funds that you mentioned, there is an annual report fee of $100 that's required from businesses every year. Where does this money go to?
Okay, so my understanding is that we do receive 10% of the fees that we charge. So, for example, for postage or for the licensing fees, we receive 10% of our funds. For the annual report fee of $100, I'm not sure if that goes into a special fund, but again, for our fees, generally we receive 10% of our fees, like for vehicle registration, et cetera.
So
Those get put into those come back to our
So
agency.
DRT is anticipated to get $10 of that $100 to go to DRT. But, you know, I've been trying to look, even last year, I asked the question, where is the $100 going from? That's a fee that's for every business. They have to come in every year.
Right.
To file an annual report fee, which is redundant in most cases. I mean, it's the same information every year. Nothing has changed. But yet these businesses have to come in and pay $100 for it.
Right.
And I've been asking, where is this $100 going to? What special fund is it going to? Is it going directly into the general fund? And nobody seems to be able to give me an answer.
Well, as I mentioned, you know, we're just aware of what comes into our agency. And as I mentioned, like vehicle registration fees, business license fees, once they get reinstated, 10% of those come back into our agency. Even like, for example, postage, which we charge $3 for, but we get 30 cents for, right? So the difference of the $2.70 that we don't get, either goes back to the general fund, or I'm not sure. What comes into our agency is what we're aware of, and what the difference is and where that goes, again, I'm not sure.
Okay, this is the question, Mr. Chair, I've been asking for a while. I mean, that's $100 from every business every year to file this annual fee, and nobody seems to know where this money is going and what it's funding.
I think Senator Tello and Ms. Simzu may check fund with the business license folks, because I know there's an annual requirement, and that's the
Right.
normal, what you normally would pay.
Right.
And
Well,
I think that
yeah.
might be answered at that level.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, for the report itself, there's a reason for the report, right? It's important for us to know and have updated information on shareholders, on people who own businesses, in the event that we need to contact them for any reason, right? So the information is required. The fee part, again, as I understand it, we get 10% of our fees, but the difference in where else that goes, I do not know.
Okay, well, I think it's just to find out where that fund, because I know all the fees come into, and that's where the compliance folks get involved, because when they have to do the research. But you're correct, Senator Tyree. We'll ask DOA that question, then
Yeah, I
I'll reach out
appreciate
to them
that,
for
Mr.
that.
Chair. Thank you so much. And I think I'll go into my last question here with regards to the funding of evaluation of property taxes will be needed. And when is the next mass property assessment appraisal scheduled for?
So the last time that, the evaluations used to be required to be done on every 3 years, triennial, and then it became quinquennial, so every 5 years. The last time that it was done was, I believe, in 2013 or 14. Yep. So that was the last.
That was the last time.
It was
2014?
done. We estimate. I think at the time we had budgeted a few years ago when it was included in our budget request, it was we estimated that would cost about $2 million, but that is not included in our budget request for this year.
Well, it's done every, like you said, it's supposed to be every 5 years, the
Right.
assessment. And the last time it was done was 2014 or 2013? I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
2014.
Okay, so 2014, right? So we're behind,
Correct.
obviously. Has there been any appropriation in the last 3 years? So FY21, 20, and 19, has there been any funding that's been appropriated to Revenue Tax to conduct this property appraisal schedule?
I don't recall if it might have been included in a couple years. I don't believe so, actually, Senator. I
Okay.
believe that if it was appropriated, we would have worked toward it. I don't believe it's been appropriated.
Okay, because from 2014 until now, if you can just look into that too, Daphne, and give me that information, if there's been any funding that's been appropriated in your direction for that. Other than that, I look forward to the questions that I asked that were not be able to answer, that will come to me soon. So, we're going into budget soon. So I appreciate the time, and definitely appreciate your staff over at Revenue Tax. They're very hardworking individuals, nonstop, especially during COVID. Going out there, putting up pop tents, to accommodate everybody, that you've gone beyond. And please extend my Donkalusijus Masi to everyone at Revenue Tax for their hard work, and appreciate it. And we recognize that. Okay, thank you.
Sijus Masi.
Thank you, Senator Tyree. I'd like to also recognize Senator Nelson has joined us this morning. Senator Brown, you have questions, ma'am?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Certainly good morning to Director Shimizu and your staff for being here. I agree it's one of those mornings I think we wish we could all sleep in, but here we are. I concur with the Chairman and Senator Tello with regards to your building situation. I mean, Revenue Tax is obviously going to be an important component of our government. It has been, will continue to be, and I think with the amount of money you're paying in rent, it would make financially more sense for a building to be acquired, even if it's a lease to own. I mean, there's other models that are available to allow us, with your existing revenue stream, to acquire a building and have it built without the traditional, go and get a bond, so that you can build a building that accommodates your needs and is designed for your purposes, and then the people don't have to keep paying. I mean, you can reinvest, maintain your existing facility and making it accessible. Certainly the work that Revenue Tax has done online to ease the congestion. I mean, going annually and getting a registration for your car just used to be such a burden. Now it's a matter of minutes. I can get that. I actually have my tag. I better put it on because with my luck, a GPD officer is going to pull me over.
No, but the good thing is if you renew online, you're already shown as updated. So even if you don't have your tag, they should be able
well,
to
I actually
tell.
have my tag in my purse to remind myself to put it on my car that's out there. I mean, I have the registration, it's updated, but it's just become so much more convenient for our community, and certainly you don't have the congestion that you had in the past, going up, having to go up to Revenue Tax. People go early in the morning and wait in line just to be able to do that. Now that I'm at an age I can join the Manunku line when I go for renew my driver's license or do it online, it'll be more convenient. So I certainly commend your department for its efforts to do that, and I hope I'm sure you'll continue on that very positive trend. With regards to the LTAs, and I also am a bit concerned about that because this is not the traditional route we should be addressing hiring in the government of Guam. And there's also a tendency where it can be abused, and I'm seeing this in other agencies where the number of unclassified, normally it should be the director, the deputy, maybe if you have a board, as you do, you have a number of boards, a private secretary, that's about it.
Right.
Everyone else should be classified. And I understand you might have those that have been there many years, but it's a disservice to them as well, because they're left hanging. They have no certainty one way or the other what their employment status is. And then it prevents the opportunity of others that may be qualified from even applying, because positions are never opened for them to apply. And I'm sure you can assess what your needs are in your department so you can right-size your personnel. But I think this issue does need to be addressed with regards to your LTAs one way or the other. I don't think we should continue for this long-term situation on what was supposed to be a very limited term mechanism. I don't doubt you have your people working very hard at Rev and Tax, but I think overall that situation needs to be addressed. I hope next budget year we're not sitting here looking at this list of LTAs. So, I mean, announce your positions. I understand the burden of going through DOA. Every department tells us how difficult it is to go through the recruitment process of hiring people, the timeline people have to wait to, and certainly your department has to wait to get people hired. But, you're all one administration. You all see each other at cabinet meetings, and, I think we just need to address that because it's not the way that the hiring system was intended in the government. And there's a tendency, may not be in your case at Rev and Tax, but in other agencies, it's a system that's abused. So I do hope you address that. I don't have any other questions. I mean, overall, I think you've outlined, and I appreciate your presentation this morning in terms of the work that you've done, and certainly the increase of online participation of our residents in engaging with Rev and Tax. I think the more opportunity that's available, the more efficient it'll be for you and your people, and then also, more importantly, for the public. So continued success on the work that you're doing at Rev and Tax. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Brown. I just want to make sure that she didn't miss that out. You do have funding for drug testing, and you will be doing that, right? I mean,
We do,
they
yeah,
actually put money in there, but,
we do allocate monies for drug testing, yes,
Okay.
for our hires.
okay, all right, I just want to make sure that's covered. Senator Nelson, do you have any questions for the panel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. First, I'd like to acknowledge the hard work that you have done in this past couple years. As you would put it, Director, building the plane mid-flight. And so I really appreciate the hard work that the DMV employees, the DRT employees have done to really accommodate the challenges that we had during COVID, and also the processing of the many different funds for the people. I understand that you and your team have committed an enormous amount of your personal time and sacrifice to ensure that the people's needs are met. And so I thank you and I commend you for the enormous and tremendous work that you have done. So thank you for your dedication to your people. I do have a question about the staffing pattern for enforcement. I know that this has been a challenge over the many, many years that we've had of staffing properly the enforcement division or items that need to be enforced. Are we addressing this in this budget?
With regards to staffing, I know our ASO had worked to try to identify and put in as many positions as we possibly could. And so to the best of our ability, we did do our best to make sure that we're working to properly staff. But I will say, I mean, it's not a new issue, or not something new that Rev and Tax, of course, all of our areas we believe are short. And, that's something, again, part of the reason why we have worked to do hire through the LTA process. But of course, as Senator Brown mentioned, that's something that we are also looking to work on, trying to make sure that the individuals who are hired as LTAs, that they have the opportunity to enter the classified services if they qualify, and we have been working to open those positions. But again, to the best of our abilities, what we did our best to do was to work to fund the positions that we believe are needed in all areas. But I wanted to mention, and I want to thank it was this legislature that did include about $597,000 additional. So when it came to, I think, the budget discussions, there was some additional monies that were available, and I know it was this particular legislature in the last year that allocated additional monies to us. So, our agency, we've always worked to make sure that we do our best to live within the budget that we have. But again, we're very grateful when the body's, or if the body's able to identify, because we could always use extra funding, Senator Nelson. You know, a lot of items, as you know, in this past year, we do have some performance audits that the public auditor is working on, and you know, there is a lot of work out there. As we work to modernize, we hope, again, to reduce the amount of manual work that we do so we could do more technical work. But again, we could always use the additional funding if there is funding available.
Yes, and I certainly agree with that. I was surprised at the modest budget of less than $900,000, especially for the amount of work that is required now from DRT. And so how many personnel are you adding into the staffing for the enforcement arm that DRT runs, as opposed to what you're currently staffing on?
I would have to get back to you,
Okay.
Senator.
Okay, yeah, and that's the thing, is that we have had this challenge for many, many years. This is nothing new, and so I'm hoping that we can rectify at least a significant portion for our enforcement arm that DRT operates. And I just have this is more of a trivial question. You know, the driver's license process and through DMV, are they on the national database, or is Guam still separate from the national database of the DMV?
I'm not sure what it means to be on the national database, but what I can say is we do communicate with the other jurisdictions. So for example, if someone comes to Guam and they come from another jurisdiction and they surrender their license here, we actually notify the jurisdiction they come from. And the same happens if someone were to go to stateside and they surrender their license there, a Guam license, we also get notified. So we do communicate with the other jurisdictions to make sure that people are not holding more than one license a license for more than one jurisdiction. The other thing that I've seen as well is, and even as I've traveled and I've had family members who have needed licenses in other states, or who have needed to be licensed in a state, is that there is a guide that is utilized, which includes Guam,
Okay.
CNMI, Saipan, even Rota, it goes all the way down to Rota and Tinian. And we are, so people are able to determine what our requirements are, et cetera. We also are part of AMVA, which is the American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators. And at the time that COVID was happening and they were communicating with all of the jurisdictions regarding what's going on with regards to our vehicle, our driver's license, we're part of that group, so that people know, and they can get onto the AMVA website, and when they were, or they get the emails which give an update. So I'm not sure about this national database. Please excuse me for not knowing. I can probably get back to you. But I can say that we actively communicate with the other jurisdictions, again, on our licenses.
So from my understanding, it's a database that all the DMVs are connected to, and anything can populate automatically rather than having to actively go out there and alert jurisdictions. It was a good presentation that you presented today, and I thank you for that. And like I said, it's a modest request. I was anticipating for something a little bit more, because I know the challenges that DMV has, and I was hoping that we would see at least additional requests for funding for many of the challenges, especially because it was really hard during COVID, and now you have a lot of extra mandates to implement, and I know it's going to be continuous for the years moving forward. But really, I commend the work that you've done. I commend the people that work at DRT for their enormous sacrifices, and thank you very much.
Cesar Smasi. Thank you, Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Senator Nelson. Daphne, a very good question that you brought up about enforcement. I was there with Paul. Paul used to be the CID, the CIB guy. Then he moved up. But one of the things I'm very concerned about is that as I look at that branch alone, one group got a part of the pay raise, while at the same time, you've got collection people that are deputized. And then at the same token, the guy in charge of everybody is responsible to make sure it's done right. Your deputy tax commissioner don't even get any impact. And that kind of bothers me a little bit, because it doesn't trend where you got your investigation branch they're taken care of, just like compliance, and that happened to do the post. But I think there needs to be an evaluation so we can take a look at where it trends down correctly, not from the bottom working up, and then everybody in between, you know, the collection, examination branch. I mean, before it ever gets to CIB, it's got to go to the taxpayers, and then it goes to collection, and then collection determines, then it goes to exam. Then by the time CIB gets it, it's pretty much, they only got so many years to do what they need to do.
Correct.
And I'm just concerned because as the deputy tax commissioner is probably sitting there saying, and I can actually hear him, dude, what are we doing? What are we waiting for? But you know what? That's his role. But as he came from there, he understands all of that. But then he's not being, kind of bothers me that he's not getting compensated, but his people below him are getting everything, but he's the one who's got to answer it, and it ends up at you. And then you end up getting caught with that. But, you know, I just wanted to express that because it concerns me. And then maybe you can send us something that says, you know, how you're increasing your budget, where it's at, where's the increase, how it's going to affect, because I know collection needs an increase. I know examining, gosh, every part of revenue and tax needs an increase. But you're trying to be as, what's that called, frugal with your money? You're trying to just stress the dollar, which is, hey, for an agency that brings in all the money. Just give us something so that my colleagues can actually sit down and say, we need to take care of the real property valuation. We know how we can get to that. How the insurance commissioner can do what she needs to do to get this going. Because I know there's different parts of the agencies needs an upgrade. And then when, as they mentioned, my colleagues brought up the LTAs, I was there since 2004. I know LTAs existed many, many years, some of them even over 10 years. Yeah. And what surprises me is that all the training they go through, they can't seem to qualify because why? The job description has not been updated. And I know that's a monster because the investigation branch under Paul, he forced that, we did it, we got it done, it's correct, but the other agencies, the other branches, that's a lot of work. God bless you for what you do and for what all of you in management do, because it's not easy. And the people of Guam need to understand that revenue and tax is it's a different Gov Guam agency. You have folks in there that does things that you won't do in any other Gov Guam agency. You can call them their administrative assistant. They're not doing a normal administrative assistant job. When they say they're posts, they're different than cops. Because why? You must have a degree to be in CIB. To be a police officer, you don't need a degree. A degree to move up, but there's a different, and I'm hoping that, you know, tax enforcement, they're still involved with DEA and all these programs, because when there's ever a forfeiture or when there's funding that comes out of those programs, they'll give you your share. So I just wanted to express that and hope that maybe we can come up with something that can be sent to me, and then we come up with how we can better fund your different branches, because you got different branches there, just like your motor carrier, 100% federally funded, and the money keeps going up, but the number of people are not there, and it's almost impossible to hire people, and they got to be certified. But I recommend that they be all classified, and then let the federal program fund it, and that it be known that if the federal money goes, unfortunately, so does the person. But at least there's some stability, and when their motor carrier people can move into DMV or make it work. It can work.
Right, and we agree, and thank you for that, Senator Augustin. In fact, what our team had done was our ASO, she worked with our team to make sure that we updated all the PDQs. You know, of course, because just like in other agencies, we are facing the issue of even our own personnel leaving because of, you know, certain issues with regards to pay. And that's something that, you know, again, we wanted to make sure we address. So we have looked at the position description, qualifications documents, try to update those, because a lot of them, they were like even like typewriter written. They're so old. So we needed to make sure we updated that. And that's, you know, one of the first steps to getting to where we want to be. But thank you for that, and thank you for that, your comment on that.
All right. Okay, and when I mentioned the enforcement side, I know you folks can, when you get a chance, try to do a write-up. Maybe Paul can help out. Do the write-up, Because I honestly believe collection branch and maybe even the deputy tax commissioner should be under the post. Once they're under the post, then we can settle that law enforcement issue. Because at any given time, I know Paul could get caught when he's out there. He's going to have to do what he needs to do as a former CIB, but he's still got it in his blood. It'll never go away from him. He'll retire and he'll still think he's CIB, and that's just Paul for you. I've known him for that many years. But anyway, other than that, I think we've had all the questions and statements. I'm really looking forward to hoping that we can consider the property evaluation. But one of the things that people of Guam need to understand as when it does come into play, you pay more in taxes. The likelihood is not going to go down. It's going to go up. And then with that, then we'll work it because property tax is the lowest, I think, in the world on Guam. Nobody wants to pay more. But the reality is, as the property values goes up, we need to be very careful on what we do. We don't want to chase our people out.
Absolutely.
That being, the committee will conclude this budget hearing. Committee will continue to receive testimony. Please address your written testimony to the Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriation, and Housing, and submit it via email to Senator Joe S. Agustin at Gmail or to my office located at Rand Care Building, second floor, Suite 203-761 South Marine Corps Drive, Tamuni, Guam. Jesus Masi for your attendance today to the panel and participating in today's hearing. And for those at home, thank you for watching. The budget hearing on Bill 276, that's 36 CR relative to the Department of Revenue and Taxation, is duly heard and is now adjourned at 10:19. Please be safe and have a nice day. Take care.